I clicked it. All right. The meeting is preparing to live stream. We are live. This is the Investing Power Hour, number 62 on Chit Chat Money. On these episodes, me, Brett Schafer, and Ryan Henderson talk about anything within the finance world. We do it every week. It goes live on Thursdays, typically at about 9:30 Pacific time, 12:30 Eastern time. Again, that is on Thursdays. It goes live on YouTube. Ryan, how are we feeling today? What topics have you brought to the table? I can see you're very crypto heavy, as this seemed to be a crazy week in, well, can we define it, securities industry? I guess that's going to be the big question.
Yeah. I've got a lot of crypto stuff to talk about today because I think it's a really important time for the industry as a whole. There was some big lawsuits from the SEC. So it seems like this is finally coming to, I don't know if it's a pivotal moment, I think, when they have to face off in court and determine whether or not a lot of these cryptocurrencies are considered securities. So I'll go through kind of what the allegations are and some of the commentary from other people around it. The other stuff I find interesting, Apple with the ski masks, potentially maybe more than the ski mask. Maybe it's
yep, that's my topic.
Defining the future of computing. Who knows? We got a whole bunch of stuff. Messi, I don't know. Can we talk about that? I know that's sports.
Well,
but Apple gave us a reason to talk about it. So
I guess we could talk about that within the Apple segment, but we do not typically cover the business of sports. But this was an insane week all around for the business of sports. So I feel like we
tech too.
Technically,
tech and streaming.
I feel like we wouldn't do it justice, but maybe we can talk about sports rights versus Apple's vision, unironically there for the future of their hardware devices.
Yeah, what else was there?
I talked about
there was a Hindenburg short report that got swept under the rug. No one cares about that.
Yeah, I have that loaded up. I have not read about it yet, but again, those are always spicy. I have as my second topic. Oh, the viral charts that were going around about the manufacturing spending boom in the United States. So I kind of wanted to talk about that and any investing implications, whether, anything around that.
All right. Should I kick things off?
Go right ahead.
Okay. So as a lot of people may have heard this week, the SEC sued Binance. Binance is the leading crypto exchange, I guess. I don't know if I'm allowed to use the word exchange. They're the leading crypto exchange. And they also sued Coinbase. So there's some different allegations for Binance specifically. There's like some around basically trying to evade the law in the US.
They may have taken customer funds and bought a yacht too, but that's only a small.
It is genuinely it's a small it's a small part of this.
Just $11 million for a nice little yacht. Well, that's not the number one priority here.
It is. So anyway, there are some add-ons, I guess, to that lawsuit. I believe there's 13 allegations. SEC files 13 charges against Binance and founder CZ Changpeng Zhao. But then they also sued Coinbase. The crux of both of these lawsuits are that the SEC thinks cryptos should be considered securities. Not all cryptos, but a number of cryptos that are available to be traded on both Coinbase and Binance's platforms. And so I guess let's get into it. Where's the best place to start? I mean, let's maybe talk about how Binance operates. Binance apparently was told they reportedly restricted trading for US investors, but actually they were just apparently subverting them to different platforms that they still controlled. So there was one that was like Binance.us, which was, it was kind of this complicated structure, but essentially they had the ability to claim the customer assets as their own and use them, which apparently was used to buy a yacht. So there's those concerns. And by the way, that sounds an awful lot like FTX. I'm just saying in terms of the legal structure. That's not the end of the world. What is the main concern here is that they are operating as a securities exchange and they don't have the license to be a securities exchange. And so that's kind of really the crux of the whole debate. Are Solana and not Bitcoin or Ethereum, I think those are deemed not securities.
Solano, I think it's Solano.
Solana.
Maybe. There's too many. They all have strange names.
Yeah, there's a number of different ones that they call out in the different lawsuits. But
what about Doge?
Doge would not be considered one, I believe. And I'll get into.
Okay.
Let's start with this.
All
How
right.
does the US define a security? Okay. There was a 1946 case called, it was something versus Howey, where they determined basically what is considered a security. And so now they have something called the Howey test. And so the technical definition and the way they sort of test what is and isn't a security is the investment of money in a common enterprise with a reasonable expectation of profits to be derived from the efforts of others makes something a security. I know that's a very
it makes sense when it's a business, but Magic Beans, I think, maybe they can evade this just because they're strictly Magic Beans.
Well, that's where it kind of becomes the debate, right? And so Dogecoin, it is explicitly stated that it's Magic Beans. So, okay, when the Dogecoin creator goes on Twitter and says this is a joke and it's not to be taken serious, that is basically calling it not a security. Okay, so Dogecoin's off the hook. However, you look at something like Solana, and Matt Levine wrote a great piece on this, and he kind of broke down Solana independently. Solana is, there's people behind it. There is a company behind it.
It's a common enterprise.
Yeah, so this is how Solana themselves kind of defines the common enterprise, if you want to call it that. So it says Solana Labs stated publicly that it would pool the proceeds from its private and public Solana sales, so SOL, in omnibus crypto asset wallets that it controlled, and that it would use those proceeds to fund the development, operations, and marketing efforts with respect to the Solana blockchain in order to attract more users to that blockchain, potentially increasing the demand for it and therefore the value of Solana itself, given the need for those who wish to interact with the Solana blockchain to tender SOL. That is to say, they are issuing, I don't know, you can't call it a stock, but they are issuing a security
that you can
to
buy
raise
with a
money,
yeah,
to have people in their organization develop on behalf of the blockchain. So under the kind of the, I guess, checklist of the Howey test, there's 4 things to look at. Did investors invest money? And by the way, I recommend reading the money stuff. Matt Levine, he does wonderful writing on this. Did investors invest money? Yes. SOL was sold for money to raise funding to build Solana, right? I don't think that's debatable. Was there a common enterprise? Yes, Solana is an enterprise. It is a blockchain ecosystem, and it tries to attract users. Third one, and once again, I am kind of regurgitating Matt Levine's stuff, so keep in mind, go ahead, read that, check it out. He's the primary source.
I think at this point, everyone's heard of Matt Levine. He's probably got 1 million subscribers, but yes, it is more comprehensive to get the details.
Okay. Third one, is there an expectation of profits? Now, this is maybe where Dogecoin doesn't pass the test, right? They've said, like, don't consider this an expectation for profits. With Solana, people bought SOL hoping that it would go up, and it did. And there was, in Solana's public statements, reason to believe that it could, right? If you buy Solana today, they're going to invest in and develop the blockchain further, and
well, here's what
more people would buy.
Here's what I think is funny when they talk about developing the blockchain and stuff like that. And when they made this in 1946, they said reasonable expectation of profits to be derived from the efforts of others. They, in fact, and I think everyone thinks of this, they think of, say, for example, General Motors making cars, selling them, earning a profit, distributing it back to the shareholders. In this case, the expectation of profits derived by others, from the efforts of others, is really, and comes down to why we're in the crypto skeptic camp, and is by definition the only way to make money is to make a profit off of the effort of others to pump the token for you, right? That's the so I mean it's completely different. It might be like even more or not even more. It might be strictly illegal because they're all by definition pump and dump schemes, but it is different because there actually isn't a enterprise that you're investing in. You're investing in a magic bean.
No, but in this case, there is an enterprise. There are
Well, yeah,
Solana
but
developers. There is
I
an
know, but
organization. I'm sure
but
they have an
they're-
office that
I know they have a business. Like some of these people have businesses, but again, the reason you make money off of the token, not because there's profits.
right.
They make
There
money
is
because the
no-
price goes up.
they're not selling a product. From what I understand, they're not selling a product. They're selling the token, which maybe one day builds out applications that are useful. But here's the fourth part of the test. And so I'll go through it one more time. Did investors invest money? Yes, obviously. Was there a common enterprise? Yes. Solana is an enterprise. Is there an expectation of profits? I think you can easily say yes. Do the profits come from the efforts of others? Yes. Solana went up because the money you put in, they invested it into developers who built out the Solana.
They made it
blockchain.
they made it a very impressive Twitter thread. That's why. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Sorry,
that's kind of the
continue.
interesting stuff is you get like VCs who just bought a bunch and then they, write a white paper and then.
Yeah. Don't listen to that all in pod about Solana. Trust me. Do not listen to that. That will not expose them as charlatans.
It is. Yeah. Can you retroactively go back and file suit against people for securities manipulation if it wasn't a security at the time?
Interesting. That is a loophole, Ryan. Well, I'm not a lawyer, so
I wouldn't be surprised if they were talking about Solana a little less in today's world. Okay, so anyways, when it's laid out like this, I think I look at it and I think, okay, it has to be a security, right? They're raising it to build something out. Like it's if people say like coffee is not a security, coffee beans aren't a security, it's a commodity, right? That's true. But Starbucks, the company that's building out or using the commodity, it's kind of like Solana in this case. I don't know if this is an apples to apples comparison. That is a security and it should be regulated as such. And so here's kind of the reason I think this is important. And Matt Levine lays out 5 outcomes. He says, first of all, here's one outcome. The SEC wins and crypto is more or less banned in the US, except for those that aren't considered securities.
example, Doge.
Even Bitcoin.
Maybe.
I think
Okay.
Ethereum. Yes, but example, Dogecoin. Second one, SEC wins and crypto flourishes abroad and the US misses it. It's another option, I guess. Third one, and that's, I would say the second option is probably the one that Brian Armstrong is the biggest kind of proponent of. He wants the development to happen here in the US. He's threatened to leave the US, which I don't, it sounds like the US would be for that. So it's kind of feels like an empty threat, but
Yeah.
that's what he's concerned about is like, oh, this is going to happen abroad and we're going to miss out. The third one, and this is maybe the one I find the most interesting. The SEC wins, and then some combination of existing crypto firms, new crypto entrants, and legacy financial services firms finds a path forward for crypto to be traded in the US in compliance with US securities laws. Everyone buckles down and says, okay, Solana is going to start filing annual reports with audited financial statements.
Of what? The pump and dumps? Of what? What there's no product. It's sorry.
The product is the token, right?
Yeah.
So maybe what they are that's where it would get super complicated, right? It's hard for these kind of organizations or enterprises to determine what's theirs versus what's other people on the blockchain, like what's their work versus what's just other existing people's work that aren't a part of the organization. You know what I mean? So, but that's an interesting thing because it's like, okay, investing in Solana, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it if you believe it's the future, but because there aren't audited financial statements, there aren't annual reports, investors are not cognizant of all the risks associated with it, other than some random white paper that some VC wrote, or the creators who are obviously financially incentivized to sell this thing, what they wrote. So you need kind of that audited financial report and that's the point. That's what the SEC is filing for, is to make sure the investors in America are aware of the risks, which I don't think that's there yet. And so,
yeah, nothing wrong with that either. Like, and people like, especially with stocks, like anyone that doesn't really follow maybe stocks closely or read SEC filings, when you read these things, it's not like the risks are something that you look at and go, oh my God, there's risks, I don't invest. It's, I look at these risks, they're almost always lawyer boilerplate risks. Like, if there are natural disasters, our insurance company could be blank and stuff like that. It's just laying that out there for people to understand by the letter of the law, by whatever the SEC requires, to make sure you are not trying to be biased to, like, for example, it's the difference between how a company might hype themselves up on a conference call versus what is actually put in their 10Q and 10K, their annual report and their quarterly filing.
Yeah. I think it's very similar, right? Solana goes to, development conferences and talks about all this stuff without having to really have anything audited or anything, I guess, legally binding to it. But it's interesting to think about this from kind of the SEC's point of view, which is like, why it reminds me of the early 1900s, when a lot of these companies were not required to publish financial statements. They could put out BS numbers and people would speculate around them. And I think if you're looking back on that and you say, well, the introduction of the SEC was a pretty damn good thing because it helped people get relevant information and understand the actual risks. I think it's very similar to that.
Three things that drove like the American economy that were so simple, but just for 1, 30-year mortgage, fixed rate; 2, FDIC insurance; 3, SEC. I mean, those are game changers, and they all happened really after, I believe all 3 were after the Great Depression, or after the depression of the 1930s. So things had to get really bad before we decided to do that. But before that, 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, it was the wild, wild west of securities, of stocks, of bonds, or bonds, whatever, but specifically of stocks, these bucket shops, pump and dumps. What do they call them? Wash sales. I forget all the terms. Basically, a lot of manipulation that the exact same things are happening on with these tokens. What they say with Binance, like, they were specifically using their own entities to do wash sales to pump up stuff, or say that there was more trading than there actually was. Is that, am I remembering that correctly, Ryan? Do you remember seeing that? It's a long, it's a big lawsuit, and to be honest, we're not going to be reading all these documents. I will let other people do that for me, but I believe that was there.
Yeah. I guess let me go through the rest of the outcomes. Number 4, potentially here, the SEC loses and the courts just basically say these aren't securities. Things go on as normal. People can speculate in these assets, if you want to call them that, but I don't think you can call them assets. I guess you don't know what to call them. Tokens, coins.
That's the business model, is to make sure they're,
I think that's the debate, right?
Exactly.
The 5th one, Congress or a future SEC steps in to change the rules, saying, well, sure, all this stuff is technically illegal under existing law, but it's crazy to stifle innovation like this. So we will make new rules to allow for regulated trading of crypto in the US. Maybe there's something along those lines, where they basically create a new structure for these to be regulated. It doesn't, maybe it doesn't fit perfectly into the previous definition of a security, because I mean, we've talked about it's kind of, if you were
It's weird.
Solana and
Yeah.
you were trying to write an annual report, it's kind of bigger than just the developers you pay, or like, whoever's collecting the money from the sale of Solana tokens. Like, it's ecosystem's larger than just that. So it's kind of hard to file an annual report or
It's also
financial statements. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's also larger, like you said. It's more complicated, but it's also smaller because, again, it's in the end, all this stuff is nothing.
There's no product, I suppose.
Yeah. So I kind of go, I don't really care what's going to happen. I think it's a giant waste of time, but I still think the end game is that, given that these provide no true value besides the fact that you can buy them and sell them at a higher price at this point. Hey, I could be wrong. They could start developing something interesting. I still see no path to, I just see crypto withering and withering away as the price pumps and stuff. I mean, if you don't hit another all-time high in 5 years with some of this stuff, I see the demand or the enthusiasm just continuing to go away. I mean, how does it get more exciting than like Bitcoin Miami 2021 or 2022, where there were so many people, there was so much money thrown around? I mean, can it get bigger than this? The enthusiasm, again, this is a whole nother topic, but I really don't care what the SEC does. I feel like the end path here is either they succeed and actually create value and actually create a product, which again hasn't happened, or the end game is it's no matter what the SEC does, these things will be worthless. Yeah, you can trade them kind of like gold, whatever, but there's still nothing value. It's not providing any value to me. So why should I care?
Yeah. And I mean, I think the SEC's goal here, maybe it's to just kill crypto.
Well, they need to protect investors, I guess. Right.
That is their goal, right?
Yeah.
And so defining the risks is obviously important. If these entities are unable to do that, then Americans shouldn't be able to trade in them. I think that's that's why the SEC is in place. Now, the kind of libertarian point of view is that everyone has their own responsibility to do what they want with their cash, regardless of risks. And
gotta live in the real world. People need to live in the real world.
Could you
it'd be regulate
these as casinos? And not in the, I'm not making fun of it.
No, I mean,
but
you're right.
If it isn't securities, isn't it speculation, potentially gambling? Right? It's kind of one or the other.
They should do it. Yeah, they should have a partnership with DoorDash where they send you free drinks if you're on the on the site. No, it's actually a good point, where it could be regulated as a casino or like a gambling thing.
I don't know. It's interesting to see how this plays out, because I am curious, like, whether these things are deemed legal. If you look at it on the Howey test, based on kind of what I'm reading about Solana, it seems like these are securities.
Yeah. Here's my last question for you. Are you buying the I Stand with Crypto NFT?
Oh, no. And it is funny. Like, I kind of like, I don't know, in my head, I maybe make fun of Brian Armstrong a little bit for the way he reacts to some of these cases.
Well, the strategies might be a bit unique. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. But then I start to think like, okay, if I were running Coinbase, what else would I do? Like, the only thing you can possibly do is try to get people to rally around your cause. The other thing that I should mention here is Coinbase has said on a number of occasions that they tried to go through the process of filing as a securities exchange, and the SEC was apparently very inaccessible, not very communicative. According to Coinbase, they did a press release where someone wrote a letter that basically said that. Let me see. There's actually a quote from a Coinbase press release that I have. I should be able to find here. Come on, where are you at? Yeah. So in a March blog post, March 2023, so what, 4 months ago, 3 months ago, it's Coinbase says the bottom line remains Coinbase does not list securities or offer products to our customers that are securities. Then in a March interview between Yahoo Finance and Coinbase's chief policy officer, they said, when we ask specific questions to the SEC, how do we get to a path to registration? There's never an answer. So I'm sure that would be frustrating. But at the same time, if you're trying to register as an exchange, securities exchange, then like, what? Why are you trying to register if they're not securities? I guess. But
I know.
I mean, I guess they're trapped. They feel trapped, and that makes sense.
Well, you're trapped because you created these magic beans and you're doing something illegal. And yeah, here's what's funny, I think, is they basically admit they're doing something illegal. And then Coinbase goes in a blog post, yeah, we're doing something illegal, but actually we're just going to go on as business as usual. That's our plan. Great plan, guys. Really great plan. It's going to work out. Here's the thing. Let's put it back to investing. What is the thesis of buying Coinbase stock today? Because this seems like, why would you touch this thing? I see it seems crazy.
Well, and then on top of everything else, they're losing money right now. It feels very dangerous to touch them. To touch the stock at all, because I'm sure a lot of the trading that happens is not just Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I'm pretty sure Bitcoin and Ethereum were not called out in these suits. So
right.
Maybe they survive on just being a Bitcoin and Ethereum exchange.
It's also dumb. It's so dumb.
They're basically just a commodities exchange, right? Because that's the determination. Are these commodities or are these kind of securities? So
I don't know. It's so tiring at this point. Can we just figure it out? I'm not. Don't you get so tired of this stuff?
Now, let me grab a quote from Binance's chief compliance officer. He wrote,
that's a job. That is a job right there.
Yes, he wrote in a message to a colleague, and this was because CZ directed Binance to conceal many of their high-value U.S. customers, and they gave them continued access on Binance.com. The Binance CCO, or Chief Compliance Officer, said to a colleague, "We are operating as an effing unlicensed securities exchange in the USA, bro." It's not that they didn't know. It was probably that if they try to do this, it kills their business. Like if they have to delist a whole bunch of the tokens traded on their platform.
Have these guys heard of Telegram? Come on, guys. Get some secure messages here.
It is, and the SEC put that as like the photo on the lawsuit, like that quote. And I'm sure he had a rough day at the company. You're supposed to be
a crypto exchange. Your whole point is decentralized, untracking, or whatever this stuff is. I get confused every time.
And CZ,
you're going to use email. You're not going to use Telegram. Isn't that your brand? Come on, we need some encrypted messages here, guys. I thought that was the whole point, anonymized. But keep going.
CZ has said stuff. He's had like emails that said, "Don't ever put anything in writing," kind of thing, which sounds like the kind of thing you'd say if you were running a perfectly legal entity.
I was going to say, yeah, that's the things you say when you are not trafficking money for Iran and North Korea. But let's go to the next topic. Apple Vision Pro. I think many people have heard of this, but I'll go through the details. First question, though, I think maybe it's a fun one. Do you think this is a good name? Because like Apple, with everything they do, I think this is a fantastic name.
Yeah, it's a good name.
All right.
It's a good name. Are you buying it?
No, that's the question I have at the end. Let me go through the details of what it is first, in case anyone didn't watch the announcement. It's pretty easy to understand. So after years of research, could have been a decade, Apple finally announced its mixed reality product. It is allows you to translate from augmented reality, which for anyone that doesn't know, that allows you to see the outside world as well with some screens kind of in front of your face. And then it allows you to go to VR as well, which closes you out fully from the outside world. It has multiple cameras, a new spatial audio technology to kind of, position virtually where someone is speaking, a custom computer chip that they designed. It has 12 cameras, 5 sensors, and screens that apparently look like 4K TVs for both your eyes. So super advanced. And it also has a lot of different futuristic tech that I think we'll see kind of come out when people get these products in 2024. For example, one of the features I saw was, quote, predicting what a user will do based on their eye movements. I think I said that weird, eye movements. So where your eye is going, predicting what you want to do. And unlike the Meta Quest ones, they don't have these controllers. You control everything with your eyes, hand motion, and what was the other one? It's your eyes, your hands. Like you swipe and you look at stuff. I forget what the other way to control it is. There's 3 things though, and
Can't
it's
remember.
not like a
Never used it, so can't remember.
Yeah, we don't know. Okay. And they also say that they're reducing the motion sickness problem, which that's another worry I have. There's 2 big worries I have. One of them is that I don't know if that makes me confident in buying one. The price, as many people probably saw as it went a little bit viral, is $3,500. Now, first, yes, you already tried to ask this. Would you buy one, Ryan? What do you think?
No, I
Yeah.
would not. Well, I mean, the price is pretty hefty. I'm not even buying the Meta Quest at like $200 or whatever it's discounted at today. So no, I'm not going to buy the Vision Pro. And there's no telling. I mean, there's a bunch of people that are probably very passionate Apple customers that'll maybe just like splurge all their money into whatever the next product is. But the reason I think a lot of people were willing to pay up for things like the iPhone was the utility and like the actual functionality and using it. It was very different.
Clearly helps you. Clearly, yeah.
I'm not sure it's like the utility here is that clear. Like, why would I need this in my life? There was a lot of people that really, I think, needed an iPhone. They wanted an ongoing internet connection. Didn't want the Android for whatever reason, chose the iPhone, yada, yada, yada.
Well,
so
that's more just a smartphone thing in general when we're talking about adoption of these mixed reality devices.
Yeah, I don't want to touch it. No, I'm not going to buy it for $3,500.
Okay. All right. That's an easy question.
Plain and simple.
Yeah. I think, there's no way I'm touching this thing. First off, it seems weird that they're like tracking your movements and stuff and predicting like how your moods and stuff based on your eye movements and your blood pressure and stuff. I don't need a company doing that to me. It seems a bit invasive, I gotta say, but we're Apple, we're private, whatever. That's just my gripes.
I'm a little indifferent about that part, but it's just a lot of
Predicted.
money.
Yeah, I don't know. Having them track my mood and serve me ads, I don't particularly like that. Here's a better question though for an investing podcast. Will this product be successful? I'm gonna lean actually towards yes. I think they could sell a million of these things, which is not much, but that given the price point, that gives them pretty good breathing room to again try to go further over the next decade.
Yeah. I don't want to have a Steve Ballmer moment where where I laugh it off and say no one's ever going to buy this. And then it's like some next generation of computing, but I've always had this problem that they look hilarious.
Yeah, I think that was my 2 problems are the motion sickness, and then the other one is you look like a dunce.
Yeah, like I asked my friends, like, what would you, if you just saw someone walking around with this thing on, what would you think? And they'd be like, it'd be kind of hilarious, to be honest, to like watch somebody like roaming around with this ski mask
I don't think
on.
no one.
Like, I don't think they're looking at stuff.
Yeah, but no one's roaming around with their souped up Mac computer. It's more of, I think, an at-home device that you're using privately. Here are the people, though, Ryan, that you're going up against, and this was a viral tweet from some FinTwin account.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Keep going.
If it's some at-home computing device, how is it that much better than a Mac?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that's the question. What are the improvements on the Mac? Yeah, sorry, we got a comment here. What about the Meta Quest Pro? That is around 1K pixels, and I think was higher when it was first launched. Yeah, I think from what I read is that Apple's resolution is going to be better for your eyes, which is a very important thing because unlike a TV, which can be 6 to 8 feet away, this is going to be 2 inches away from your eyes. So there has to be the resolution has to be much, much higher just because it's so much closer to your face. Okay, other thoughts.
It's hilarious to me that, like, I don't know, Meta spent all this money. They've probably developed like a much more useful actual platform, but no one cares. They were just waiting for Apple to launch something themselves. Like, oh, it's Apple. Like, I'll buy that.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what has me confident. Not confident, but maybe leaning towards the side that this is going to be a success is that the Apple diehards are, how do I say it? They're diehards and they're a bit psychotic. So this is what Mads Capital, which is a anonymous account on here, he said, this is what you're going up against for the people that if you think this is going to be successful. And it was a Reddit post of saying basically my fiance and I, wait, that's an age gap right there. Okay, we don't need to discuss that. Regardless, our lover of all things Apple. We have all Mac, laptops, blah, 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 iPhone since 2007. We're wanting to get married in an Apple store somewhere near us, closest being Chicago. Does anyone know how much it would cost to rent out an entire Apple store for the entire weekend? We would have the rehearsal dinner, and then wedding ceremony and wedding reception in the store. We were thinking a full 3-course meal served by the geniuses themselves. These are the people that are going to be buying these things, Ryan. Meta doesn't have anywhere near this.
I mean, think that may be a one-off case, but no, it's there. I mean, there's obviously a cult-like following for Apple and its products. There has been since
cult-like, maybe.
Maybe just straight up cult. Yeah, that is the only reason I think Apple can do it. But it's just still like, if it's just gimmicky, if it's not like the iPhone wasn't gimmicky at the start, you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
It was like people were using it on a regular basis. First, you're using it as a phone. You're using it to get internet connection. I just don't see that happen. I don't think there's a market here. VR was talked about a lot 20 years ago.
Yeah, just wait 5 years from now. The tech's going to be so much better, guys. Like,
and it's not even about the tech. Like, I don't want to walk around with one of these things on.
Yeah, here's what's interesting, maybe from an Apple investing perspective, and actually, little teaser. We are interviewing someone who has followed Apple for a long time as an investor, a Nirban, where can I know? Mahanti from 7 Investing coming out in the next few weeks. I'm sure we're going to cover this. Here's what I guess would concern me as an investor is, unless this goes mainstream, it's not going to be meaningful to Apple's bottom line. So I don't know how much, how relevant it can be. I'm sure they probably spent $50 billion in R&D so far on this. Where's the ROI?
Did you see the video of when they announced this at first? Like, Tim Cook was up on stage. He's like, next we have our Vision Pro. And it showed up and they're like, whoa. And then they're like, and the price is $3,500. And I was like, oh,
yeah. To be honest, that's how much computers cost in the 70s and 80s. So I don't think it's a giant leap. I think we're just given the deflation of the industry. People are not, going to be a little bit shocked by that price. But for new tech, I don't think that's a crazy price for something this advanced. I mean, it really does seem advanced. The thing is, like you mentioned, Ryan, I think they're ugly and they're bulky and they hurt your head. And what value is it going to provide? That's the question. I don't think there has there been what value is it going to provide? Like when I said Meta is a joke on excuse me, MetaQuest is kind of a joke on Twitter. They're trying to sell these things for $200 now. Some guy said, "Have you played Beat Saber?" And I was like, first off, I thought that was a porn bot, but I was like, whoa. He's like, it's the best game on there. And I was like, great. It probably sucks. I looked it up. It's like this thing where you
think
are
I've
doing
heard of
virtual
it.
reality. Yeah, they have it in those commercials. That's not value. Like the other video games are always already significantly better, and you don't feel like you have to puke afterwards.
It's like they're trying to force an addressable market. Like they are trying to will product market fit themselves more
Yeah,
meta, I would say. And then Apple just came and kind of like walked right into their gold mine potentially one day. That'll like, because like Meta's doing all this marketing. Like, okay, it just feels like such a waste. But I don't know. Here's the
how do
other
you
thing. I
think
think when I think about Apple products, it's always been kind of signaling, right? Like the phone looked pretty cool.
Yeah, the
It was
watch isn't
it
really
was
that.
expensive. The watch looks cool. The AirPods kind of you look cool potentially.
I don't think so. I think I think they made everyone think they look cool, but yeah, it
Sure,
became
that's the point. Is
yeah,
it makes
yeah,
you feel like you look cool.
yeah.
I don't think this is there or close. Like you said, I think it makes you look like a dunce. But if you're just doing this in private in your own little room, maybe there's a use case there. I just think it's kind of not that big of a step up from what you get with a Mac. Well, you can say, oh, well, it's immersive. Okay, like
It's so much like the voice
is
tech where
that
they're like,
huge? Like,
it's exactly like the voice tech where everyone goes, you can turn off lights with Alexa, and you go, okay, cool. I save about 1 second, and I go like that.
yeah.
It's the value spread of like how much more useful it is has to be, I think, just has to be much higher than it seems like right now.
Yeah, what is it? In order to replace an existing product, you have to have a product 10x better or something. That's like what
That's
some
the
common
saying.
saying.
Yeah, no.
I just don't think this is that, but
Smartphone was that, and people talk about the Apple Watch or the iPad. The iPad was more of an adjacent product to the smartphone at the time. I believe they were on the same operating system until they separated it out. The watch, again, I will say this time and time again, it has some sort of health value that people may look at, but strictly it is a fashion device that is, out of all the Apple products, it's mainly just for like how it
maybe
looks.
maybe we just sound like haters, and maybe we're gonna be the Steve Ballmers of 2020 without the relevant or without any sort of the reputation to lose. But I would love for someone to interview Ballmer on what he thinks.
On the VR stuff right now.
Yeah.
That would be funny. Here's, yeah, again, totally could be right. Here's what's, I think, people in this industry or investors that kind of get caught up into this stuff. What's the saying? I'm going to use another cliched saying again. If you do the same thing over and over again and expect different results, it is the definition of insanity. And I feel like this is kind of what's happened over the last 2 decades is people keep releasing VR products. The tech is always revolutionary, but no one does mainstream adoption because there's a core motion sickness problem and a core self-esteem problem because people don't like the way they look when they have them on.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe there's enough people that want to get married in Apple stores to buy these things. Maybe if every Apple shareholder buys one, there you go. You've got your addressable market.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll close.
Let's
Yeah, we'll go
let's
to
talk
another
some
topic.
other exciting stuff.
Well, I want to caveat though, as we go to another topic. If anyone's going to win, it will be Apple. If there's going to be a market, Apple will win. But yeah, let's do another one. Here's what's manufacturing. I want to talk manufacturing. Maybe let me share the screen here and talk about this because there was a very interesting chart, actually multiple charts that were going out this week. I'll describe them for everyone. Oops. So if you look at just basically, it's a chart either by Fred. Actually, yeah, I'll use this one first. It is total construction spending indexed to the year I believe it would be 2000. So they kind of have, it's basically a dollar spending. I believe it's probably in the billions of dollars. Either way, the exact numbers don't matter. Things were kind of chugging along and kind of coming out of the '08 crisis. There's a little bit of an uptick, kind of coming out of I believe this is probably the 2014 to 2016 U.S. fracking and shale boom. There was an uptick. Then it kind of flatlined for a few years until late 2022, kind of mid to late 2022. Total construction spending in the U.S. has skyrocketed. And if we look at an even deeper chart, it is almost all coming from manufacturing. And then if we look at an even deeper chart of subset of manufacturing, almost all the growth is in computer, electronic, and electrical, which again, I believe is going to be mainly semiconductors. So do you think so far it looks like the CHIPS Act has been a huge success in that the reshoring here? I mean, we kind of looked at there's another article today from Taiwan Semiconductor. I'll stop the sharing. That they are now going to double their investment, I believe, or actually maybe even more. Yeah, they're increasing their investment in Arizona from $12 billion to $40 billion. It seems like this reshoring manufacturing boom, US, Mexico, it's so far people, we've kind of been on this train, but other people have been way more enthusiastic about it. Seems like it's been completely right so far.
Yeah. Long Autodesk.
I hope, well, hopefully. Yeah.
We are, I should say. We are long Autodesk. But
yeah, that's
there are probably a lot of, I think, software providers that in this space will obviously benefit.
Engineering software, construction software, manufacturing software, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, good. I guess, remember when we were doing that engineering software month and I think for every single one, we were like future growth opportunity, the new infrastructure bill or whatever. Maybe that's coming to fruition.
It's the CHIPS Act. It's coming. Yeah, it's interesting to see. And I think again, we're no experts on China, but China used to subsidize a lot of this stuff. They would give a lot of government incentives for the manufacturing companies, whatever it would be. I don't know if it was tax breaks, direct money, whatever it is. They would use their government money to make it cheaper versus other people to manufacture this stuff. And that's why it went there. So I think the fact that the US government is doing this now, kind of, trying to make it cheaper, trying to get all the tax breaks, is probably the reason why all these companies are committing so much, manufacturing capex. What do you think are there any general investment implications besides engineering software and construction software is going to be a good hunting ground in this decade?
Maybe the contractors, the public GCs.
Yeah, potentially. Those feel like bad businesses, though.
Yeah.
Somewhat, maybe.
Maybe. I only know of one that I've looked at before, and it does okay. But
I feel like there'll be a big demand for immigration, to try to get people who want to, work either from Mexico, and it's really not just Mexico, all over the world that want to come to the US, and work in a lot of these jobs, because the spending is going to require jobs. It's not, we're not at entirely robotic manufacturing yet.
Yeah, potentially it's a boom to labor. It's about time labor had a win.
They've been having, it's been a nice two years or so with that. Hopefully it continues. Yeah, it's been a very tough 40 years for that part of the, I don't want to call it the economy, that part of the, just that part of the economy.
You know what else I saw?
Okay, go
ahead. I was going to say, this is maybe unrelated, but I saw something this week that was like, people under the age of 30 don't want to work hard. And I know people say that all the time, but I'm like, do you think that is true relative to past generations, or do you think that's just like a human thing?
I feel like that's just everyone that's old complains about the young people, and they've been doing it. Don't people give out examples of that happening in Greece, of this sort of narrative going on in Greece, Roman, ancient times, right? I wonder if they, even all the way back in Egypt, what was that? The Tigris River, whatever. even the most ancient civilizations, they were probably talking about this. And I feel like that's every time or every generation. They say, oh, the next one's soft. Oh, they don't want to work. But in reality, it's probably no different than anyone else.
The interesting thing with labor for me, especially some of these manufacturing jobs, I have a number of friends that are in that, were working construction for some time, and it makes sense to me why there's such a big labor shortage in manufacturing, because the injuries there are so frequent.
Well, yeah, and a lot of the time, some of the construction jobs you can just kind of pick up and go, right? Or anyone can go work it. But a lot of these are skilled manufacturing jobs, especially within aerospace, especially within semiconductors, electrical, whatever.
Yeah.
I think there could be a shortage of that just because a lot of it was transferred over to Asia. The demand for that was much lower in the United States, and now we might need an increase. Here's the last question I have, though.
Hold on. I have to change my microphone, so sorry if my audio quality gets bad for like 5 minutes, but
Yeah,
talk for a little bit while I do that.
Ryan is in a he's in a pickle with his audio right now. But we're making it work. The question I have, is this inflationary? And the reason I say this is because you have a really big increase in, say, CapEx for a lot of the stuff, just say manufacturing in general. We don't have to say what it is. First off, that's going to be inflationary from a commodities and energy standpoint, because to build something, it requires energy and it requires materials. So this, commodity prices are going to go up, all else equal. And then second, the cost per, say, output of something is going to be more expensive in the United States versus, for example, not picking on them, but Vietnam. To make a profit for these companies to stay viable, all else equal, you're going to have to charge higher prices. I kind of think this is something that could drive inflation to be higher over the long term, if that makes sense. Obviously this growth in manufacturing would have to continue, but I feel like all else equal, growth in manufacturing spend in the United States is going to be inflationary. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because inflation is not necessarily bad if the economy is growing. But what are your thoughts there?
Well, I missed about half your thoughts, but I guess maybe, but yeah, like you said, I don't think it's the end of the world if the economy is growing. I don't know. What's it looked like over the last 20 years?
Of what? Of the spending?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the charts. It was basically flatted down since 2000. Not really any big bumps outside of the oil boom, I believe, and also it might not even have been the oil boom, but yeah, I mean, it's basically gone vertical this year.
Well, inflation has come down, so
yeah, and that is, it's. I mean, there's lag times on this type of stuff, but on a more of a long, not a quarter by quarter basis, but on more of a this decade thing. If this continues, I feel like it's likely that inflation might not be 10%, but it could be a driver of, or not even a driver. There could be some, counteracting forces that bring inflation down. But I feel like this is by definition going to be an inflationary force.
I think you're possibly right. Well, are you going to be getting the new Amazon mobile plan?
I would definitely get it if they had good international roaming once I get out of my AT&T contract, because if they're going to make it cheap, they're talking about making it free for Prime subscribers, which would be ambitious. I feel like if they just made it $20 a month and you had a way to have international roaming that AT&T and Verizon are terrible with, and why T-Mobile's winning, I would 100% switch to that if it could be managed through my Prime account.
Yeah, I guess for context, for any listeners who haven't heard, apparently Amazon a leak came out this week that they're planning to offer a $10 mobile phone plan. How expensive do you think it would be for them to provide like similar coverage to the big mobile providers?
They'd have to hop on one of the networks.
Is that how it work?
Yeah, just like Xfinity / Comcast and just like Charter / Spectrum. They hop on, I believe it's Verizon, but either way, the only people that have their own networks are the actual
AT&T,
infrastructure, AT&T,
Verizon,
Verizon, T-Mobile.
T-Mobile.
So they'd have to hop on one of those and basically be a white labeled solution. Again, not a telecom expert, but this part I do believe I understand. So they would pay a fee to Verizon or whoever for each subscriber. And they'd have to. So the thing with Amazon is they could make up the difference between, churn reduction and people spending on e-commerce and stuff like that. So I wonder how they'd make the economics work, but feels like a good product for them to go after if they go for. Seems like they're trying to do this wireless internet stuff. I would like them to do this instead of Alexa, because there's a clear value proposition here where Alexa is it's moonshot science project.
Alexa hater. We've just been
Oh,
pure
I'm the
haters
number.
this whole episode.
Oh, I'm the number one Alexa hater. They're gonna crown me. What is the Chappelle Show thing? Hater of the year. I'm the Alexa hater of the year every year since 2017.
All right. Other news. God, there was a lot this week. Okay, so apparently, for those that keep up with kind of the sports world, Lionel Messi is going to Miami Club Football, Miami CF. It's the MLS club in Miami. And there is, I don't think the terms of the specific terms of the deal are completely public, but, or maybe even not solidified yet, but Apple's apparently giving out a cut of MLS. You can on Apple TV, they got all the rights to the MLS games, I think for like the next 10 years or something like that, like a long-term deal. And there's like a season pass essentially for all the MLS games that I think is $15 a month. Cheaper if you're a season ticket holder, but apparently Messi is getting a cut of all the MLS season subscriptions. Do you think, first of all, what do you think of that deal? But do you think that sets a precedent for other streaming services to potentially do something like this? The only one I could think of is maybe like anyone who gets like F1 rights or golf potentially.
I think oh man. I don't know if the value, the negotiating rights of any other athlete works like that, except maybe F1 could be. Tennis could be. Golf, when Tiger was there, could be, but probably not now. I just don't see in any of the other big sports leagues, there's not a single name versus like, if LeBron went to play basketball in Spain or China, sure. But that's kind of the same, what's happening here. So, yeah. It's an interesting deal, though. And I wonder, for Apple's perspective, it probably seems smart because they can lose money on this for a long time. But if it drives more hardware sales, then we're golden.
You know what else I saw? This kind of reminds me of probably the one league where they have blundered streaming the most, your favorite, the Major League of Baseball.
Well, my second favorite, Pac-12 football, too. So both of them I have gripes with.
I saw Alex Morris tweeted it out like this week. There was a 4-game series between, I can't remember who it was. It was a 4-game series, and each game was played on a different provider. And like you unless you had cable, there was no way to like get to them all.
Yeah, it's so interesting because they're sacrificing long-term fans by basically saying anyone that doesn't have cable, so basically all young people, are not going to be able to access your service, or if they want to go to a virtual provider, you're going to have to go to this one specific one and pay $90 a month to do it, which is a huge hurdle rate for these local sports fans. And to do that, you're just getting a little bit of a cash cow for maybe the next, 3 years until the cable bundle falls apart when Disney decides to break it. They got to make some moves here. They got to sacrifice a little bit of short-term profitability, and all their partners for local, what do they call them? RSNs, regional sports networks. They're all going out of business. So it's not like, remember, I think I just saw earlier this week, the San Diego Padres are not getting paid by their partner because they just filed Chapter 11. So it's not like it's actually working out from a cash cow perspective. You're losing at both ends. You're not making money, and you're driving away a lot of your young fans who don't know how to watch you.
Yeah, it's, and then I remember another part of that tweet was like, for an NFL game, people will they will figure out how to get the game
It's different though. Yeah,
to watch because there's 16 games. People aren't going to do that for the MLB.
MLB, hockey, regular season basketball, regular season MLS, even, and basically every sport besides football.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think you got to get onto some sort of a streaming service and make it uniform throughout. There's some terminal value risk here with the MLB.
I think
can you just wait? Can you just wait until everyone's on smart TVs and then hop over? I think you probably lose a lot of fans in the process.
You lose a lot of fans that you would have built up some fan equity over the last 10 years. That's a good thought to end on. This was the Investing Power Hour. Again, these go live on Thursdays. You can watch the replays on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast player of choice. We are not financial advisors. Anything we say on this show is not formal advice or recommendation. We are general partners at Arch Capital, and clients may hold securities discussed in this podcast. Thank you.